The guy who you were talking about, doing the ocean cleanup stuff.
Boyan, yeah.
Isn't one of his big initiatives like going to the 1,000 biggest rivers, polluting rivers
Yep.
or something, and doing some stuff there?
Yep.
That alone, are you hopeful for what can be done for ocean cleanup? I mean, I know it's disturbing when you see these things. Do you feel like the attention is there?
The attention through social media is getting there to bring up the problems with pollution, but there's so much stuff we don't see. I think the majority of it we don't see, and giant industries that are dumping toxic chemicals that you don't see the toxic chemicals floating. But there was a big thing in Russia this past year where it was coming from some military base down out this certain river, and all the sea life in that area was dying. And you could see from aerial photos, you could see kind of the slough of where the current was taking it coming out of this river, and it was proven it was coming from this one location. But yeah, man, when I was in Bali this year, I felt hopeless. I felt like we've gone too far, and I don't think we can ever clean this mess up.
My name is Wes Carter, and I'm the president and third-generation leader of Atlantic Packaging, a company founded by my grandfather in 1946. I'm also a husband and the father of 8-year-old twins and a lifelong surfer, traveler, and outdoorsman. And I've seen firsthand the devastation caused by plastic pollution in our oceans, lakes, and rivers. Today, Atlantic is the largest privately held packaging company in North America, and we support companies in almost every manufacturing vertical, which gives us the unique ability to use our influence to help the supply chain transition away from problematic packaging that threatens our global waters. A New Earth Project is a coalition of outdoor enthusiasts, industry-leading brands, and innovative packaging suppliers, all working together to solve these problems. Because it's about all of us, it has to be. Please join us on our journey to a new Earth.
There were times we hit walls of garbage that was so disgusting. You just couldn't believe it. For as far as you could see in the ocean was just garbage.
Historically in packaging, the only thing anybody focused on was cost and convenience.
Yeah.
That's all they cared about was cost and convenience. You know what? Plastic's cheap.
I would say lucky for us, a lot of the plastic floats. A lot of it does actually float and get blown back up on the beach, but a lot doesn't.
We also know that at the rate that we're producing plastic and at the rate that it's leaching into the environment, by the year 2040, there'll be 3 times as much plastic in the ocean as there is right now. I mean, the rates are growing exponentially.
I take care of the land, I take care of the ocean, because the ocean's going to take care of me.
We recycle paper in this country and in Europe really, really well with the corrugated boxes. We have an infrastructure to recycle paper that's crazy. I mean, 85% of all the paper that we make gets recycled in this country. 9% of the plastic goes.
Yeah, it's recycled and recyclable.
Sustainability, there's not one thing that sustainability is, but what we tried to do at Atlantic is say, let's get real analytical.
And I think Kelly Slater pointed this out really, really well. I mean, while there may be certain parts of our world, the United States in particular, maybe on the East Coast where this problem is not as evident, it is growing at such an exponential rate that it will not be long before it will be everywhere and unavoidable.
At some point, you walk along the beach and there's more garbage than there is like shells. If you're in it and you're surfing a certain spot and there's like diapers and garbage and fishing nets and hypodermic needles on the beach and just all this stuff, and nothing surprised you anymore. When I was in Bali this year, I felt hopeless. I felt like we've gone too far, and I don't think we can ever clean this mess up.
Collectively, if we can all say, hey, the supply chain created these problems. Packaging companies, consulting companies, consumer products companies, consumers, we're all in this together.
I think, in a lot of ways, Hawaii is a good example of people, really taking care of a marine environment.
To me, if you born in Hawaii and if you led the life in Hawaii, you Hawaiian.
Not that there aren't issues here. Certainly there's plastic pollution, and we pick up microplastics all over the beach, but you do have a community here that is very invested in the health of these islands, and it shows. You can really see the cleanliness just even being around town. There is a level of awareness. There is a level of reverence for these islands.
I like to do, when it's obviously more flat, I'll go out and clean fishing line and hooks and lures and weights and stuff off the reefs as well, because it's really crazy because to the human eye, unless you've done it multiple times, you can't really tell the difference between a piece of fishing line that has algae that's grown on it or just algae. And so if we can't really tell, we can't expect other marine life to tell.
Everything that we do, we live off the ocean. Our ocean is our school. We learn from the ocean. Our ocean is, our icebox because we feed from the ocean. Our ocean is our church because I guarantee you, if you surf, everyone in the ocean has all talked to God. So we learn, from the ocean in so much different ways of what the ocean can provide for us.
We can take the ethos, the reverence that Hawaiian surfers and really surfers everywhere have for the oceans, have for the beaches, have for these natural resources, and spread that awareness globally, and engage people who may not have the pleasure of knowing these places and being introduced to them. And my prayer is that all people have access to beautiful outdoor experiences, and whether that be the mountains or the oceans or rivers or lakes. And one of the great things that we have in today's world is we are so connected through mediums like this. And so even if you aren't close to the Hawaiian Islands or may never get to experience the Hawaiian Islands, hopefully through experiences, through media, we can share a little taste of what this resource is, and hopefully that inspires people to have a greater level of commitment to cherishing and preserving what truly is the only earth we have.
I want to hold your position, but it's almost like you start talking to Kelly Slater. Did you remember kind of the first question you asked him? What you said something of like, is it as bad as we think? What did you ask?
I'm just curious, if what have you seen in your whole career? Is it as bad as I believe it to be?
Yeah, I said, when it comes to plastic pollution, you've traveled around the globe more than any human being alive, probably, especially in the oceans. Is the plastic pollution problem as bad as I think it is?
I think it's probably worse than we believe it to be.
And his response was, I think it's probably a lot worse.
I was in Bali for 3 months this past year. You go out and surf at Uluwatu and Padang, and it doesn't seem that bad because the wind's been offshore for months, and it's kind of the tip of the peninsula, so you don't see all the garbage. But when the river mouths flow out on the East Coast and the wind's blowing onshore and all that stuff ends up on the beach or in the lineup, it's unfathomable how much garbage is in the ocean. there's sections where you have to slow the boat down almost to a crawl, left like idle speed, because there's so much garbage in the water and you don't know what you're going to hit. And if you hit a giant log or something amongst that, you're going to sink your boat. So, but we had times where we had to pull the engines out of the water and pull the garbage off them. I had a couple surfs where I had a surf at Karamas where we had a contest the other year. I actually had to get out of the water because I couldn't surf. There was so much garbage in the lineup. 3 of us were in the water. You couldn't surf. Getting stuck on your leash, you'd fall in it, you might swallow something, but there was just garbage. The whole surface was covered in it. And at a certain tide, it just converged right in the lineup and just kept getting recycled around and around and around, and more was coming out the river, and the current was pulling it down the coast right to where we were, and it seemed to just get stuck there. And that's the first time I've ever had to surf, ever had to get out of the water anywhere in the world and stop surfing because of garbage. So.
And I think Kelly Slater pointed this out really, really well. I mean, while there may be certain parts of our world, the United States in particular, maybe on the East Coast where this problem is not as evident, it is growing at such an exponential rate that it will not be long before it will be everywhere and unavoidable.
The amount of waste in this world from clothing that goes into landfills, I think it fills an Olympic swimming pool every couple of minutes or something that goes into a landfill. The environmental aspects of clothing and design is disastrous.
What I see we are beginning to transition to is where companies and consumers primarily value the quality of the goods they buy from a longevity perspective and are willing to invest in those products at a higher level where cost is just not the only thing anyone's focused on.
Although I didn't want to be preachy, I wanted to try to be educational and let people know that kind of stuff. As surfers, we see, I've said that before, we're like the canaries of the sea, and we get to see all the crap that's up on the beach, and it's up to us to bring that to light and to work on those things. So that was really the big part of me starting this company.
And so it's really refreshing to hear somebody like you who started a company and said, hey, listen, my products may be a little bit more expensive, but they are. Yeah.
They might, and it's not they might be, they are,
And you're establishing a value proposition that is based on sustainable manufacturing, and people need to understand there's a cost associated with that.
So I started Outer Known. In the early days of Twitter, I got really active on Twitter. I read a lot of stuff. I followed a lot of people, and I became very interested in what people had to say about surf manufacturers. And there was a lot of people who were really critical of not only surf manufacturers, but also of like the Nikes of the world and the working conditions, factory conditions and stuff. And so after a number of years of thinking I wanted to be involved and understand the process of clothing, the supply chain and what all goes into it and who makes your clothing. Like none of us in the surf world knows who makes our clothing, where it came from, any of that stuff. And it's the biggest sponsor in surfing, right? So I thought I had an obligation to understand those things and to make some kind of impact during my career. So although I had a lot of people say, why would you start clothing? It's such a hard business. And the kind of place you guys are going into with price and design and stuff is like even harder, and there's a less market share and blah, blah, blah. I had Pierre Agnes told me straight up, even when I left Quicksilver and Pierre was my good friend, and I was staying at his house, he goes, this is impossible, you can't do this, it's not gonna work. I know I tried to look at this, but you can't do it. So I basically just started reading certain people who are really critical of the industries and the things they had to say. And I thought, well, I think that you could make a company that could fix those aspects of it. So the social compliance aspect and the environmental side of textiles. And so you could put the supply chain together right and make a company that was being responsible for people on the planet. And so that's kind of our tagline, for people on the planet.
We have to get to a place where we lay it all on the table and we have a common goal. Like we all want to save money, we all want to be profitable and healthy organizations. But more than that, or at least equally as much, we want to be good stewards of the planet. We want to make decisions that are in line with life, with healthy life. And when I saw that Atlantic Packaging was in a position to have a major role in that, it was a life purpose kind of moment.
on the next episode of Journey to a New Earth.
I have a huge dumpster out there, and to fit the waste from 10 picture frames that I ordered from Target, to fit the waste from that packaging into my industrial-sized dumpster, I had to pop every individual bladder. It took me like an hour.
This type of product, fiber-based. This can be recycled in every blue bin in the world.
Literally, just to get them in my dumpster. I'm like, really?